Hello and welcome to this very special edition of Mutual Fund Corner on CNBC TV 18. I'm Sonal Bhutra, and as we always do on the Mutual Fund Show, we are going to be discussing interesting themes and interesting categories as far as mutual fund investing is concerned. And one of the themes that has picked up over time is ESG investing. So we have no other than Swaroop Mohanty, who is the CEO of Mirae Asset Investment Managers India Private Limited, to break it down for us how this particular theme is doing, what is the outlook going forward, and whether you as an investor should actually go ahead and invest here or not. Swaroop, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure speaking with you. And as I was saying, this category has really picked up during the pandemic, right? That is the environmental, social governance norms. People are going ahead. Investors are looking at this theme a lot more than they would earlier. The traditional investing is, of course, something people are preferring, but here also there is a lot of focus. But the latest figures are showing some decline. What is your take? Is this theme losing its relevance, or is it just the start?
Sona, first of all, thank you so much for having me on a discussion on such an important topic. See, from an Indian perspective, the Indian ESG schemes were launched just a couple of years back. So the track record is very small to comment with conviction on anything. However, when you look at the global side also, the ESG inflows have slowed down a bit compared to previous years. In fact, investors at this moment, not only in India, globally, have prioritized, I think, capital preservation over any other goal, say climate change, for instance, at least for the moment. And this is, given concerns on global recession, inflationary pressure, the rising interest rates, and of course, the geopolitical tension. It is important to address that ESG funds are not immune to general macro environment exposures also. So when you look at numbers in particular, and you look at the first quarter from an US inflow perspective, the US market got an inflow of net 29 billion into ESG funds. This, when compared to last year or the last quarter of 2022, was around 37.7 billion. So one has seen a little bit of a slowdown. Apart from that, you've also seen a slowdown on product development in the first quarter. Europe, especially, which is a big proponent of ESG investing, saw a significant reduction of new sustainable fund launches amid, regulatory uncertainties and fear of greenwashing acquisitions, while the rest of the world kept its momentum. But there's been a slowdown in Europe, and these are just the trends that are, on show at this moment globally on ESG.
Okay, so yes, it has come off, but in India, it's still a concept which is emerging. But say someone wants to get into ESG investing, what are certain challenges, risks, or things to be kept in mind once you're entering this particular category?
See, Sona, globally, ESG and sustainable funds came into existence after the institutional investors in early days, and now retail investors have started demanding the exposure to companies that are expected to be sustainable for the benefit of people and the planet. Asset managers then responded by floating the funds. In India, it's the other way around. Asset managers have already floated the funds, and we expect that the demand from Indian investors will come organically over the long term. However, there are some challenges, as you rightly mentioned. There is no uniformity in terms of underlying data. We need to understand that ESG is at a very nascent stage in India, and all the stakeholders, including the regulator and the government, need to evolve as the understanding improves over the period of time. India as a country is committed to net zero by 2070, and there's a lot of work happening on that. The regulator is in constant touch with the mutual fund industry to develop a systematic framework around which there is consistent data when it comes to analyzing or putting an ESG framework in place. So in the long run, while India is expected to be one of the fastest growing economies parallelly, it has to resolve various challenges in terms of ESG. Over the period of time, investors will catch up with the importance. And once recognition of ESG factors become essential, funds will start flowing into the theme. Just a couple of years back, when you look at us across the country, we realized that 90% of India was in a danger zone from a heat wave impact. The climate is changing, it is impacting our life, and slowly but surely, we will realize the need for the concept of ESG, not only in our lives, but in our investing. As far as, when you look at current inflows are concerned, there are, stated earlier that at this moment, people are preferring capital preservation over other goals. So ESG will take some time, but at this moment, once the framework is in place and there is recognition from people, then from a methodology perspective to what constitutes ESG, everything will be put in place. It's a matter of time.
Okay, it's a matter of time. So it's not yet that people will start going ahead and putting their money in these funds. It's still taking some time. But in that case, suppose 2-3 years down the line, it does pick up. It's thematic, right? So do you think it will be very cyclical in terms of what the movement in such stocks or the underlying be?
Here's the thing, Sonal, whenever ESG comes in, there's this thought that it is thematic. But, let me just break it down a bit. There is no predefined, set or an exhaustive definition of what constitutes to ESG. A company may be, claimed as ESG for some funds, whereas it may not be for the other funds. That's how it is positioned at this moment. Funds which sort of eliminate some sectors can be caused as, can be looked at thematic, but broadly, in India especially, the ESG funds are fairly broad-based in nature and are not heavily skewed towards a particular sector. Yes, by nature, they will tend to be a little overweight on technology and consumer discretionary by nature of the concept itself. Will be a little low on say the OMCs and the commodity companies. But broadly, when you see the portfolios, they are very diversified. So as a proponent of ESG, I don't call it thematic. A broad-based, non-cyclical portfolio can qualify for your core portfolio, especially when you compare it to the large caps. So I don't particularly think it is thematic, but time will stand by this thought of it moving from a theme to a core portfolio. Some time away from that.
Okay, so it's not thematic as per you, not cyclical as well. But if somebody has to look at allocating some amount of their money towards this particular segment, how much do you think it should be? I know it's like cannot be an exact number, but in terms of valuations, how do these stocks or these funds stack up versus traditional investing?
See, under normal market conditions, when you compare to normal funds which are broad-based and sector agnostic, the value of ESG or valuations of ESG funds will tend to be slightly higher. This is because of their underlying companies. ESG as a theme selects greater number of companies coming from IT, financial services, consumer staples, FMCG, etc. And like I said, will be relatively lower in the areas of, say, the OMCs, metals and commodities. These tend to have a value part to it. So this is true across the globe. And I'll give a very interesting example. Say the MSCI USA ESG sector leader index is trading at a P multiple of 20.5x, whereas its parent index, which is the MSCI US index, is at a PE of a multiple of 19.5x. So again, if you're making sector agnostic ESG portfolio, the difference will not be much. But when you look at selecting ESG at this moment, one should look at it in comparison to the large cap funds. As the ESG evolves and more companies start, incorporating ESG into their system, one can go lower in the market cap. But at this moment, if one were to select, I would say compare it to the large cap allocation and select from there.
Okay, interesting take there. Swaroop, as always, it was a great insight that we got from you, because ESG investing is something that not everyone understands so much. So it's important to get an expert opinion here. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll keep chatting with you on more subjects. But that's all for now. So thank you for being with us on the show. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Mutual Fund Corner. Stay tuned for more updates.